I just don't find enjoyment in Adam's presence.
Yeah,
You could redeem
maybe
yourselves.
your face isn't as funny as it used to be. So,
Thank you.
all right, well, welcome back. Today we're talking about I don't know, maybe it's a little bit personal topic, I guess, or it could be.
Could be.
But I think it's something that youth ministers don't talk about maybe as much as we should.
Yeah.
And it's a part of our humanity.
Yeah.
So I think really what we're talking about today is when teens and young adults leave ministry or leave the church, and what that's like for a youth minister.
Notice that there's a difference. There is
Yeah.
going to be a difference between
Yeah.
the two.
Yes, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leaving youth ministry doesn't mean leaving the church.
Right.
But yeah, I think there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So have you had any experiences where had someone really involved and then
Where my brainwashing failed and someone left the cult.
and they drop off the face of the planet, or they
Yeah.
become an atheist, or
Yeah, no, it happened. Well, I don't know if it's that deep where
Yeah.
like they change.
Apostatize.
Yeah, right. Or or like become adamantly against the Catholic Church. I'm sure that it has happened a
Yeah.
handful of times, but the more common cases for me are, people just stop doing ministry and they kind of, I don't know if it's that common, but it has happened where people have stopped helping with ministry and they kind of morally choose a different route.
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think are the main reasons people leave?
I think there's a good handful of them. I think that when people lack or don't get the same emotional response within themselves,
Yeah.
that they don't learn from that or take that as a sign of maturation in the faith. And I think the reliance on emotion, and that's something that us as youth ministers, we have to clarify a lot, but the reliance on emotion, when that's gone, I think there's a crisis there.
Yeah.
And also busyness. People get busy.
Yeah.
And whether it's going into like a junior year of high school, which is kind of difficult, or starting undergrad work, or starting a full-time position, there's always phases in life that, you kind of have to learn to juggle that time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and although it is justified a lot of the times, we get the short end of the stick as youth ministers.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the biggest one that I would say I see is that feeling. It's like, yeah, teens come in, they might join leadership, or maybe they're even adults, and then all of a sudden it doesn't feel the same, right? It doesn't feel the way it used to. So they and like I think a question that comes up is like, why am I here? Like, why am I doing this? And that's something we need to kind of revisit as youth ministers.
We definitely do.
But it's kind of that important message that our faith isn't a feeling; it's not reliant on the feeling,
Right.
which I think we've touched upon in other videos.
Yeah.
And then I think also busyness. I think sometimes drama, like people could like upset each other, and then
Last year, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
For like, unless I was completely oblivious to it before, last
Yeah.
year it was just like,
especially with teenage girls. Sorry.
well, I mean, especially, sorry if you've never heard this talk,
You're
but
a
when,
teenage girl.
well, and if you couple that with a teenage boy,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
attraction there, that like,
Yeah, people breaking up, it's awkward.
Super
They-
awkward.
They decide they have to leave or
Yeah.
whatever it is. So all this stuff, there's a lot of reasons that people leave, but I think from a youth minister perspective, it's kind of hard for a few different reasons. Number one, we might lose a really good leader,
yeah,
and that's tough. And that's people aren't easily replaceable as people. Roles are, and then the other side is like, as youth ministers, we're human beings, right?
Yeah.
You're a human being, okay.
does not compute.
So that means like when we build relationships with teens and young adults, we kind of invest in getting to know people, and then there's kind of like there's a disruption in that. It's kind of a cutoff. And I think for any human beings, when you have any type of relationship or friendship, and then it's like, no.
Well,
it's hard.
especially with ministry, because, and maybe this is me doing it wrong, I don't know, but it's not simply an investment for the sake of the corporation that you're hoping maintains, with ministry, there is like an actual authentic emotional connection.
Yeah.
And that evolves into friendship. And whether it's not, the traditional peer-to-peer friendship or it's a mentorship thing, like I do grow attached to the people that are in leadership. And I think that's a good sign that we care, to be honest. I wanted to teach high school when I was in college because the idea of emotionally connecting with people in that way and having to be creative in ministry and find new ways to evangelize, that was terrifying to me because you had to really put your heart into it.
Yeah.
Not to say that teaching high school is not that, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
So
I think it's healthy for us to feel sad.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there could be some anger that comes up too.
Yeah.
You know, to see people walk away and be like,
right.
Man.
Whether it's justified or not.
Yeah.
There are justified reasons for it.
Yeah.
But they're also unjustified.
And it's not like passive aggressive, like, oh, you know, you gave up so easily. Right. But it's just like sometimes it's like you're trading in for like a lesser good sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's something I see is like people don't have that feeling anymore. They leave ministry and then it's like, well, this will make me happy, you know?
Yeah.
And then you kind of see them just go down that slippery slope.
Right.
Into being completely just not Catholic or I don't know, whatever it is. There's a lot of variation there. So I'm not saying it's like one specific case. Like if you leave ministry, you know, you become a pagan, but there is like... There's a lot
go to Burning Man every
year. But there are a lot of teens where we see them like they could be really involved. Yeah. And then, you know, the next month they're at some music festival.
Well, that's what's hard for me because like
going crazy and you have to like kind of witness it.
Yeah. Well, that's what's hard for me because like we said, there is a fine line between someone ceasing to help with ministry and someone leaving the church. So like inherently, Coachella was so much different when I was younger. I mean, it's kind of it's not my cup of tea now. I'm also just like a boomer who hates like modern music now, apparently. But it's not impossible to be a Catholic in good standing, a practicing Catholic, an evangelist, and go to these things and enjoy those type of things.
Yeah.
There's, like I said, there's a fine line between abandoning your faith, which is like a different type of sorrow, as opposed to the frustration of someone without good justification leaving your leadership.
Yeah. And I think there's a level of maturity that comes with discerning like, hey, I can't be a part of this ministry anymore. But this is how I'm going to practice my faith and live my faith. And that could be moving to a different ministry or just, you know, being active in the parish in some
or even just outside of the parish. Yeah. Like if you want to devote more time to bringing people closer to Christ outside of the parish, that's still working in a ministry in a sense.
Yeah. You know? And that could still be kind of sad for youth ministers.
Right.
Not because it's wrong, but just because it's maybe that proximity, those relationships, that community that changes. So the part of ministry is it's super personal and it can be hard.
Well, to be candid,
at
least in our program, a lot of our leaders, I see them 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
And our interactions, of course, we get stuff done, we plan and everything, but the vast majority of the time is just us hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
And I know it's like a cliched American church saying, but like building like that community, that little church within the church. And that was something I had when I was younger, but being a youth minister, an old man now, like I still have that, and it's still something I cherish. And those cliched things of like your community, like showing you the face of God and all that stuff through their struggles, through their joys and everything, that stuff is actually true.
Yeah.
No matter what type of like Catholic church you go to, hopefully the community is not there for the sake of community, but they're like literally making God's mission, God's love for you, all that stuff much more clear.
Yeah.
And it's hard to let go because it is familial. Like it's hard to, especially because there's so much vulnerability when people are sharing testimonies, vulnerability from people who are willing to adapt their schedule to help out with this stuff. Like there's a lot of joy and a lot of appreciation, and when that's gone, whether it's justified or not, there is a little bit of sorrow because you don't get to see your friends as often.
And I think that's healthy, that's needed to miss people, you know, to miss that connection. And you know, there's that balance of not being too attached to, but really, like, if you're
in ministry, that balance is hard, though, because it's like teetering on the edge because you don't want to be disingenuous and you don't want to think of them as just a coworker.
Yeah, exactly. Like if we weren't sad, that would be a problem. You know, then I think we would kind of be taking the humanity out of the ministry.
Right. And that's vital. Yeah. The humanity in the ministry is absolutely vital.
And you know, I think in a lot of ways, God experiences that with us, right? That when we leave him or we turn our backs to him,
Yeah.
there is like a come back.
Yeah.
And we get to experience that a little bit. Not that youth ministers are God or saviors, and there is that complex that exists, but
I've never experienced that.
but we reflect that part of God too, I think, is like seeing like, okay, when people, walk away, or just things change, it's like,
And that's a good point, though.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And for me, my faith became much more vibrant when I thought of the nature of sin in that way, like turning my back on God as opposed to God turning his back on me.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, we say it all the time, and it may be common sense, but like it really clicked in my brain once I started working in ministry that, these corny songs that we love, God's love is incessant. Like, it is everlasting. It is, God is sad when you turn your back on him.
Yeah.
And this isn't to like convey a guilt trip or anything. But when you lose, if we're trying to emulate God and live in his image and be that image of God, I think it's normal to feel that type of sadness when someone that you love is no longer there.
Yeah. And then the nature of it is that you watch somebody distance themselves from God and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And you have to respect their choices and just hope that they come back. And there's a reliance on the Holy Spirit that God is working in their life, even if you don't see it, even if you feel like they're going the opposite way.
Yeah, but we also have to be open to any conversation that they're willing to have. We were talking about this before a little bit, but whenever we see people who either stopped leading and just didn't tell us, or people who left the church and were shopping at Target or something and they show up, usually the first thing they say is something along the lines of, "Oh, hey Brett, oh man, I've been meaning to help. I'm just a little busy, but I'm coming back soon." It's like, I didn't even ask that. I just want to know how you are. I don't mean that as like super pious guy, but when our ministry is most stable, we're not just associating them as leaders. They're our friends, and when they drop out, we want to have coffee. We want to have a meal.
Yeah, we're not just like an authority figure. We're a person. It's like we want to know how they're doing.
So, what do you think the dangers are then of, as a youth minister or for a leader, or somebody to dwell too much on someone being too busy and having to leave?
I think there's like two extremes, and what you mentioned. I think there's like the corporate mode, where it's like, I don't care, like, we don't need you, we'll find somebody else, everybody's replaceable. Like that's not our faith. And then the other end is like being too attached, like, I need you, like, I have to save you, I have to be like in relationship with you. So there's that healthy middle, because youth ministry, there are boundaries. There are really important boundaries, especially with adults and teens. And there's oftentimes a very definitive line of how far we can go to help a teen, or even just invite them back. And sometimes like the best option we have is to not even say anything. And that's hard. Like when you see that, and like there could be instances where saying something is just not going to help.
Well, and also, I tend to forget this, which is bad, but sometimes we forget to pray. As ministers, we should be the ones who are setting that example of prayer for other people. Not that people like have a weird like camera on us all the time and know our private lives, but if we believe in the power of grace and the power of prayer, we need to be praying for these people that were so much a part of our lives at a certain point. I think another danger, though, and I don't know if you're tempted by this, I'm sure I am, but to take it personally when people leave, and react in like, oh, I'm gonna build this little army, so like they have my back at all times, and
I think I like early on as a youth minister, that was kind of where I would go. But then to realize that, it's not about you. It's not about even the person that's leaving. It's like, okay, like God is still working, and the Holy Spirit is still working and moving in this.
The chip on the shoulder mentality works in a lot of facets of life, whether it's like corporations, whether it's during sporting events, to motivate you academically. Like, it's okay to have a chip on your shoulder in those instances. In ministry, it is not appropriate. And I think that when we get this, like, the world is against me, but I'm going to have these people who have my back, and we're going to share the love of Christ. That's very exclusive.
Yeah.
And I think that's a danger.
It's very like saviory, like we are gonna do this and that's final.
And I think we say this not like as models of perfect youth ministers. These I don't know about you, but those thoughts pop in my head whenever there's trials.
Yeah.
But we need to take a step back. We need to pray.
And there's humility in that. It's reminding who this is about, who's in charge. And
I think that's important for youth ministers. Yeah. And I'm not calling anyone out because, like I said, I think it's something that works. That I struggle.
It's tempting. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And like if someone goes to say like, Christ is still working in their life in ways that we can't see. And I don't know. I hate when people say like, because there's the statistics that go around like 84% of teens that are confirmed leave the church by the age of 23. Right. So there are all these things and people say like, well, they'll come back when they're older. And then statistics like show that they don't.
Yeah.
But there are instances and there are times where like kind of in the book Bride's Head Revisited, that there's kind of a twitch upon a thread where God kind of strokes a string that is attached to us and calls us home. Yeah. And that does happen. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people it happens like at the end of our lives. So it's like a good point. I don't want to rely on that, but there's like when it happens, oh man, it's so beautiful.
Savior complex is scary.
It is.
And now that you mention it, there have been so many times where somebody's doing something that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Or changing their life in that way. And it's like, oh, I gotta find a way to make a difference in this person's life.
I gotta talk to them. I gotta see, and it's like,
and it is appropriate in a sense, like maybe they do need someone, but it's not completely dependent on you. And that's where we lose humility.
Yeah. And you have to discern when it is appropriate. It's like, okay, I see this, but do I talk about it?
Well, and that doesn't mean like completely forgetting them or anything. Yeah. Like pray for them. Like honestly, pray for those people that need those prayers. But we don't have to be the ones. It's just so arrogant to think that we're the only ones who can do that. But if our prayer is really, really fervent and we're in a setting where people actually care for other people, there's a good chance that they're also, the image of Christ as much as we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a big part of it is just as youth ministers having community yourselves to talk about this stuff. Cause like Brett and I can talk about like, hey, this is really hard in ministry right now. And so when people leave, it's not like whatever, or it's like, we're not going to just,
F them.
We're not going to quit over it. Like, but being able to talk about it is important and recognize like, I'm kind of sad. Like this sucks.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing it.
And that's completely different than what you just said with the like, oh, just forget them. They chose their path, we are called to care.
We're still called to love them even if they decide not to be.
And not even in like just love everyone type way. Like if any youth ministers are watching this or leaders are watching this, we're called to love in a specific way in this ministry. Not to say that we have this great power that's given to us, but like the role that we took just kind of comes with that. It doesn't come with glory or anything like that, but it comes with that really exhausting commitment to the people you want to shepherd.
Yeah, whether they're in our ministry or not.
Yeah.
The door is open, the faith is there, the love is there. And it might look different, but we're still.
When somebody explained to me that the gifts of the Holy Spirit manifest and you don't know when they manifest, that kind of made sense to me. Because sometimes as youth ministers, at least for me, I think like this is the window to get like the gifts of knowledge and understanding and all that stuff to manifest, and I'm the one who has to turn the key. Yeah. And it's not my fault if they're not allowing me to do it. Yeah. Hopefully they have a lifetime of grace where it's just going to kick in. How many conversion stories have we heard from people when they're middle-aged or even older? Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah, big life events, getting married, having kids, someone dies.
Right.
And God works through unexpected circumstances. And
again, it being super cliche, we really are just planting seeds.
Yeah.
And the prayer, the dedication, that stuff, that's allowing God to water those seeds. God, that sounded so corny. But like I think that's the reality of it.
And the community too. Those relationships really tie people together.
Oh, for sure.
And bring people to Christ.
Yeah.
So, cool. Well, if you're a youth minister watching this,
good luck.
But also, it's okay to talk about these things and to
Again, part of
feels
our
sad.
mission is to create that community
Yeah.
with ministers and leaders to
Mhm.
discuss these struggles, but also share the content
Yeah.
that we find to be effective.
Yeah, sadness, anger, and even fear, normal, important to look at and acknowledge and make sense of. So,
Or just feed them pizza.
thanks for watching. No, but please subscribe, like, hit that bell. Yeah, okay. And yeah, feel free to leave any comments or shoot us any messages if you have more things regarding this topic.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Thanks for watching. God bless.